Morning everyone, hope you liked that little bit of a sunset video there last night from the caravan park. Well, it's another day. The wind is still around but not as bad as yesterday. So Kinchega National Park. So here we go. There is River Drive campsites, 2 to 34. Now what we want to see is the historic woolshed and the shearers quarters and the lake drive. So okay, we're at the historic woolsheds and shearers quarters around Emu Lake. So these were used around the 1860s, and they've had to restore a lot of the buildings themselves. They were in really bad disrepair, but they're basically a representation of what they used to look like, just old iron, upright buildings. And up in the back there you can see one of the old chimneys that still remained upright to cook off and use for heating in the woolshed. So there's lots of old buildings and machinery around here as well to have a look at. There's some boards you can have a look at, read up about all the information. There is an old traction sort of boiler engine down here that was used to run some of the machinery in the woolsheds. Its origin is unknown, but it was used to help out with the construction of the lakes and also in running some of the machinery in the sheds. So there's an old Southern Cross windmill there. There's an old shed up there which I'll have to have a look at, but we're going to go check out the woolshed now. Cheers everyone. So this here is the killing shed. This is where the animals were euthanized, to put it politely. And it was located some distance from the rest of the other buildings, just for the sheer nature of what happened over here. But this is all that's left. It was made of metal. It was built in the 1950s, this killing shed. So they would have brought the animals in through here, had them all in here, tied them up, and did what they had to do to provide meat to the shearers. So that is the old shearing shed over there. There is that traction engine there. There's some more over near the shearing shed as well. So we're going to head over there now and have a look around. So before we go into the shearing sheds, we've passed another building. Now this is remnants of the old toilets that they'd built here, corrugated iron, and they pit toilets. So you can see the old timber toilet and that in there. And they're actually built over an old rubbish dump. So they are eventually going to move this building and excavate it, and there'll be some archaeological discoveries, hopefully old bottles and all sorts of stuff that may be underneath this building. So that will be something they'll do in the future. But let's make our way over to the shearing sheds now. Just so much to see. Hopefully you appreciate what we're showing you and inspire you to come out and check it out for yourself. It is really part of the Australian history. Okay, just at the front of the woolshed now, and the first structure we see, now this is original. This was put here when on completion of the woolsheds in 1875, and this is actually an old crane, a primitive crane that was used to load up the bales of wool onto bullock wagons where it was transported out of the area. I was just reading on the thing there that over 72,800 sheep were shorn here, which accounted for over 1,421 bales of wool, which weighed average 100 pounds. So don't know what pounds is in kilos. Someone can tell me. That's a bit old for me. But there's some more parts of old boilers off steam engines. You can see all the holes there from the furnaces that went into the pipes. How these work, actually, you put coal in here, and where all these holes are here, there was actually all tubing which was filled with water. And the heat condensed all the tubing up, created steam, which then went into another cylinder and drove pistons or a flywheel which run the machinery. There's an old water tank there. Here's another big traction engine, which would have been used to move machinery around and probably pull stuff around the area, probably at an amazing pace of about 1.5 or 2 miles an hour, and probably burning a lot of timber or coal. So you can see on the bottom there is a great big turntable which would have been used to turn the wheels on the front. So everything really primitive for its day. This would be really old, this thing, 1800s to 1850s probably. Not sure of the exact date. It may be written here on the sign here. The steam engine was used to provide power for the shearing, and Kinchega Woolshed in the 1920s, combustion engines took over, so they actually used this one for providing power. So let's go in and check out the woolshed. There are so many rooms in here. It's going to be fairly dark, so I don't know how the footage is going to show up, but let's go in and have a look, eh? So here we go here. So there you can see some workbenches, some old bottles, a lot of the old machinery, an old mangle. Who knows what a mangle is? I know. There's an old washing machine over the back there, I can see that. And there's an old bellows down there that would have been used with a forge, ploughs, bed ends, all sorts of old gear. Set of scales over here. There's a bale press there, which would have been used to compress the wool, all made of timber. There's the big piston that come down and squashed them all. So they would have filled this little hopper up here with wool and dragged it over that, and then that would have pulled down with all that pulley system there and compressed the bales ready for transport on the crane outside. There's another one over there. So there's an old wagon there, timber wheels, so latest technology in traction. Dust flocker, don't say that wrong, was used to shake and beat the dust out of the wool in times of drought, when severe dust storms would load down the fleeces with dirt and sand. So that was used to get all the dirt out of the fleeces so that the wool was as clean as possible when it was sent out for sale, probably to get the best price. Lots of wool presses in here. There's an old sulky. Wagon netty. There's some old tables here where they would have thrown the wool out all over as well. Lots of bits of old other drays, and there's a table there for throwing the wool out over. Lots of old stuff in here, isn't there? So there's some of the men that worked in the woolshed. And there's one of the bullock teams there with the wool loaded up, or a couple of them. And there's a photo of around the woolshed itself, the quarters, with that old chimney that's still standing. So definitely some great history in here. Here's another room in here, another workshop, machine room. Nice old cupboards in here and great old machinery. There's looks like a drill press. You wind the handle around and spin something. There's an old tin there. Another drill press, a stand for something. And there was probably some sort of engine or something on that big concrete block there, bolted down to stop it vibrating. There's an old vice there. I've got a couple of those at home still. Look at all the old timber in the floor in here. So here's where all the shearing was done. There is all the mechanical systems for where the shearers put on their cutters. This handpiece or bougie is a mechanical shear used to cut fleeces from the sheep and was powered through an arm connected to a wheel on the power shaft overhead. So there is the power shaft up there that was connected to some sort of machinery which run all these shears so that they could shear the sheep. These are all the holding yards in here for the sheep. So you can see all the little bits of timber, and they've got gaps in the floor there, so when the sheep do their business, it didn't get too cluttered up. Imagine the smell in here, eh? When there was full of sheep, hot days, and I wonder if anyone had to go underneath the floor down there and clean that out. But would have been pretty hot and hard work compared to what we do today. Yeah, you can see there's enough room to get under there, and you can still see a lot of the sheep pellets on the ground under the floor there. So here's where they would have come in, and this is where they would have corralled them up into all the different sections before releasing them back out into the paddocks. The engineering and the timber work in here, like all these nails, and it's just amazing. So there you go, there's the sheep yards out the back. To think that this all happened over the last century or so. So absolutely amazing. Look at the ironwork there, just brilliant. I'm going to get some photos in a minute and share them with you. But they have got a water system in here with sprinklers, so I don't know whether that was early fire stuff or later fire stuff. I would say probably later fire stuff. Yeah, so the sheep were corralled up into here, so if it was raining and they were still shearing, they would have time to dry out. There's a fair breeze that blows through here. As you can see, there's no iron on the outside of this end, and the wind would come through here, dry the sheep out, and then they would head in to be shorn. So that's about it for in here. I'm going to take some photos now, and this will probably be a fairly long video. May even be a two-part, or I might have to split it up. But cheers everyone, hope you're enjoying. If you've got any questions, queries or comments, as usual, leave them down below and I'll get back to you. I just noticed something else there. Have a look at the big guillotine door there. So it's got a couple of pulleys and weights, so they could pull that door down and close off that section where they do all the shearing. So okie doke, we'll see you when we see something else. There's actually a heap of those doors. I didn't notice them before. You've got to really look around. So there's one on every pen. Okay, we've made it back outside. We had a look down in the shearing yards down there, like where they hold the sheep before they go in. Absolutely amazing. Make sure you check that out as well if you do come out here. I didn't show anything down there. I might put a few photos up. But we're outside the outside part of the building, so just behind where all those little doors are and the ramps, that's where the shearers shear the sheep, and after they're shorn they come down into these little yards where they're probably corralled back into different paddocks and things like that. So that is about it from the woolshed. Hope you've enjoyed. Thanks very much for tuning in. It's definitely a terrific place to come and check out, so make sure you do if you're at Menindee and staying around the area. Doesn't cost much to come in here, $8 if you're just here for the day. We're going to go check out the old homestead now. Thanks very much. Like always, if you've got any questions, queries or comments, leave them down below, and we'll see you on the next one. Cheers everyone, bye.